Thank you, Jeff. Ryan Gorman in for Jimmy Cephalo here on South Florida's First News. Let me bring in Broward County Sheriff Gregory Tony, who you can follow on Twitter at BSO Sheriff Tony, for reaction to the Derek Chauvin verdict and the impact of George Floyd's murder on policing. Sheriff Tony, thanks so much for taking a few moments to talk to us this morning. And let's start there with the impact this case has had on police departments and sheriff's offices across the country.
Well, good morning, Ryan. Thanks for letting me come on for a moment. I think it kind of changes the paradigm for us as law enforcement administrators. I've always taken a great deal of responsibility that if you're an executive, whether you're a sheriff or a chief, it's imperative to make sure that you put the right messaging out to hold your people accountable before these type of things develop. And so it also, set the tone, whereas we as law enforcement officers are not immune to being responsible to the laws in which we sworn to protect. And when individuals step outside the lines, breach that trust, and violate the law, they're going to be held accountable, regardless of what uniform they wear or what profession they're in. And that's how it's supposed to be.
One thing that has come up a lot over the course of the past 12-plus hours following the reading of the verdict, the importance of law enforcement stepping up and pushing back against bad actors like Derek Chauvin. Tell us about that. And that seems like it was a big moment, having those members of law enforcement take the stand and testify against Chauvin.
And I will tell you that it was probably one of the more prouder things I've witnessed throughout this entire trial, was that you had a chief step up, you had law enforcement officers step up and speak to the truth of our profession, the expectation behind what we do, and how it's supposed to be done. And I've used this or coined this phrase amongst my men and women, that we can't be a profession comprised of courageous cowards. And what I mean by that is we can't be willing to get shot at, we can't be willing to run into burning buildings and take on some of society's worst, but yet be afraid to speak on the issues when law enforcement officers are doing wrong in your presence. And so we can't have that type of mindset. We can't have a profession of courageous cowards. And that is the expectation here at BSO, and it will remain so long as I'm the sheriff of this county.
I'm joined by Broward County Sheriff Gregory Tony. Now, going back to when this all took place last summer, there have been other cases that have come up along the way. Overall, it's been a difficult year for law enforcement, no question about it. What is morale like within the profession right now?
Morale is high. Here's the thing that I think, and I want every law enforcement officer that's listening to remember this, that this trial was not a trial amongst our profession, but was a trial amongst an individual who violated the trust of the community, who embarrassed our profession, and committed an atrocity on a worldwide scale, which everyone's seen. There's no reason for us to think that the 1.9 million people here in Broward County don't trust us, because they do. There's no reason to think that we need to take this as some overall embarrassment amongst ourselves, because we didn't commit this atrocity. But in this profession, we take the bad and we take the good, and we carry on and do our mission.
And final thing I want to ask you about, this is switching gears a bit, but it's important that we get your thoughts on it. The governor signed that new anti-riot legislation the other day, and it went into effect immediately. How will your deputies in the department decide when to put some of those new provisions into use? How are you going to navigate that?
Yeah, Brian, you and I have talked about this before, and one, I've been in opposition of that legislation from its onset. There's enough legislation on the books that allows us to do our job when it comes to dealing with protests or any type of violation that may exist out there. And what we'll do here is go through baseline training through our legal advisory bulletin with our general counsel. Our men and women would understand it, but we are not about to start using any type of legislation to be punitive against people who are just simply trying to exercise constitutional rights and freedom of assembly. When they do it effectively and they do it peacefully, they will be fine. If they violate it and create some type of harm to property or persons, then we will arrest them. But there's no need for anyone in this community to have any concern about this new anti-rioting legislation when it comes to BSO.
Broward County Sheriff Gregory Tony, who you can follow on Twitter at BSO Sheriff Tony. Sheriff Tony, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, Ryan.